Good morning and welcome to a very special Pinnacle Bank Forum today. It is wonderful to see everybody here. My name is Courtney Williams-Tice and I am a financial advisor here at Pinnacle Bank. Our Pinnacle Forums have been bringing our clients together with the top names in politics, entertainment, economics, and education since the day that we opened our doors. I'm honored today to introduce our speaker. Michael Hyatt is the founder and chairman of Full Focus. Michael has scaled multiple companies over the years, including a $250 million publishing company with 700 plus employees, as well as a leadership development company that's grown over 60% year over year for the last 4 years. Under his leadership, Full Focus has been featured in the Inc. 5000 of the fastest growing companies in America. In 2020 and 2021, the company was named to Inc.'s Best Places to Work list, which is an amazing honor. Michael is also the author of several New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestselling books, which included Your Best Year Ever, Free to Focus, Win at Work and Succeed at Life, and now his newest book, Mind Your Mindset, that's coming out on January 31st. Michael has been married for over 40 years to his amazing wife, Miss Gail. They have 5 daughters and 10 grandchildren. I am grateful that Michael chose me almost 10 years ago to be his banker. But he is not only my client, he has been an amazing mentor, as well as I'm proud to call him my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Michael Hyatt.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Courtney. Back in the year 2000, I landed the dream job. I was so pumped about this. I'd worked my entire career for this. I became the general manager of one of Thomas Nelson Publishers' 14 book publishing divisions. And I was so pumped until I looked at the financials. And I discovered that our division was dead last in every category that mattered. Slowest growth in revenue of 14 divisions. Least profitable. In fact, we'd lost money the previous year. And as you can imagine, that division's personnel didn't have great morale because everybody likes to win and we were losing. So I thought, wow. And then I thought, this is kind of a gift in disguise. I can't really screw it up. I can only make it better. So the CEO said to me, he said, how long is it going to take you to turn this division around? And so I looked like I was really thinking and doing the calculus and pulled a number out of the air. And I said, I think it'll take it about 3 years for us to turn this around. And he said, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. You got it, go for it. So I went back to the team. I presented to them a vision of what I thought we could do. And I really did think it was going to be about 3 years, but we rolled up our sleeves and we worked hard. And I was working myself, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, traveling on the weekends, being away from home, working evenings. But we did it. And in 18 months, we went from 14 to number 1 in those same metrics. We were number 1 fastest growing revenue producing unit in the business. We were the most profitable division in the entire company. And everybody on the division was super pumped about being there because they got big bonus checks. And in fact, I got the biggest bonus check I'd ever received. It was more than my annual salary. So I was pretty excited to go home and share with Gail, who happens to be with us today. We've been married for 44 years now. But I went home, and you have to understand that Gail's always been my biggest cheerleader. Huge support. I mean, she's here today. She's heard me speak a gazillion times, but she just wants to come out and support me. So I knew she was going to be pumped when she saw the size of this check. And so I bounced in through the back door, Found her in the house, and I said, look, babe, look at this check. And she wasn't quite her enthusiastic self. She kind of listened, and then she uttered 5 words that I dreaded to hear. Some of you are going to know what the words are, but it was, honey, we need to talk. And I went, whoa. So she led me by the hand into the den. She sat down. She began to tear up a little bit. And she said, I need you to understand, I really do appreciate all that you've done for our family. And I love you so much. But she said, I got to be honest. You are never at home. And she said, your 5 daughters need you now more than ever. And she said, honestly, even when you are home, you're not fully present. You've got your head in your laptop or in your phone, and you're just not really with us, even when you are with us. And then she began to cry and choked out. She said, honestly, I feel like a single mom. Well, that slew me because that was not what I was going for. And I wanted to defend myself. I mean, after all, I was providing for the family. I was winning at work. But in my heart of hearts, I knew she was right. And I thought that I had reached the apex of success. What I discovered, though, was that it was a false summit. I was winning at work, but I was losing at life. And I felt like that I was faced with this impossible choice. I could choose one or choose the other. I couldn't do both. And I think that for most people, when they find themselves in this situation, and maybe you sitting here this morning, you think, wow, what are the alternatives? Maybe I just need to hustle harder. I need to work harder, work smarter, go faster. And if I do that, eventually I'll get to the place where I can spend more time with the family, more time on my health, more time on those things that ultimately matter most. Other people see that and make a different decision. They decide they're going to cut back. I sometimes call this the ambition brake. They pump the brakes and they say to themselves, I'm willing to settle for less in my career for the sake of preserving my health and my most important relationships. Well, I didn't like that choice. It felt like to me a false dichotomy for it to be one or the other. And at Full Focus, we work with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs in our business coaching program, and a lot of them feel like they're facing the impossible choice. Well, that whole thought sent me on a decade quest to see, is there a third alternative? One in which you could both win at work and succeed at life, something that we often refer to as the double win. Where your business gives you the financial resources and the challenge to make a difference in the world. And that is an awesome thing, and it feels so great. But at the same time, to be able to give your family the time you know they deserve. To pay attention to your health so that you live longer. All those things. But here's how it kind of looks. I came up with this on the airplane this weekend because I thought it explains something that we see in our coaching clients a lot, something I'm calling the entrepreneur's dilemma. So most entrepreneurs I know want to scale their business. How many of you are in that situation? You'd love to see amazing growth, especially coming out of the pandemic. Come on, I know there's more of you than that, right? You wouldn't be here if you didn't want to grow your business. But here's the problem. For a lot of people, they see an inverse relationship between business growth and personal freedom. And I've had some entrepreneurs whisper to me in the ear and say, I'm not sure I want to grow. because I'm working as many hours as I can right now, and if growth means working more hours, no way. But again, what if that were a false dichotomy? What if you could have the double win where you could scale your business, but as you scaled it, you could scale your personal freedom? Now, I just want you to suspend disbelief for a moment and hold out for the possibility that there might be a way where you could achieve more by doing less and have more time for your family, for your health, for the things that matter most. And I want to share with you this morning 5 steps. I guess we're about to transition into the afternoon, but 5 steps for you to experience the double win. How many of you would like to have it if I could show you a way to get it? How many of your families would appreciate it if I could show you a way to get it? Right? Well, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like there's more to do than there's time to do it, if you're not sure how much longer you can sustain it, congratulations, you're normal. That's what I find everywhere. We have about 600 business owners in our coaching program, and everybody feels that from time to time, and especially when they come into the program. And then yet, when you fast forward a little bit, and they've been in the program for a year or so, and they're experiencing it, it's like, how did I miss this? I want more of this. Okay, 5 steps. Step number 1. Resist the illusion that your workload is temporary. Resist the temptation or the illusion that your workload is temporary. Okay, let's just pretend it's the honest planet. And I used to tell Gail, I used to lie to Gail all the time. And I lied to myself all the time because I would convince myself and her that the situation I was in right now was only temporary. And so I would say to her, look, and see if you find yourself in this. I would say, I started this new job, and I'm just trying to get acclimated, and I'm trying to learn the ropes, but once I get through this, I'll give you and the girls the time that you want and deserve. And then I'd lose a key position, a key person reporting to me, and I'd say, well, honey, right now I'm pulling double duty. Until I can hire a marketing director, I got to do 2 jobs. But as soon as that happens, I'll give you and the girls the time you want and deserve. And it was one thing after another. And the problem with that perspective is that those temporary situations become another temporary situation, and pretty soon you have a permanent situation. You know what I'm talking about? So you've got to resist the illusion that your workload is temporary, because it's not. And the sooner that you can admit that, if you don't intervene into yourself and your situation, you're going to find yourself in another temporary situation in a few months that'll lead to another temporary situation, and you still won't be giving the attention and the focus that matters most. So, and for each of these steps, I'm going to give you an action item. And this one's really simple. Just be honest. Just be honest. Admit your situation is not temporary. Not unless you're willing to make an important decision about it. You've got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired and say, look, I'm tired of kidding myself. I've been lying to myself. I've been lying to that person in the mirror. And I've been lying to my family, not overtly and not intentionally, but essentially it's been a lie that's had significant consequences. What I don't want for you and what I don't want for me is to wake up at the end of my career and go, man, how did I get here? And I've met so many entrepreneurs, so many business owners that have had wild business success and end of their careers, having lost their health, having lost their families, kids that won't even talk to them. Nobody sets out with that as an intention. We drift there, right? Years ago, Gail and I went on a vacation. I think it was our 10th anniversary, so this is really a long time ago. On our 10th anniversary, we went to Hawaii. We could barely afford it. We couldn't hardly do anything once we got there. But we decided we were going to take up snorkeling because it was basically free. We could borrow the equipment from the hotel. And we decided, we took the snorkeling class that was in the swimming pool, and we did okay there. And then they took us out on the reef, and it was amazing. How many of you have snorkeled in Hawaii? Oh, it's phenomenal, isn't it? It's like swimming in a giant aquarium. All the life forms and all the things that you see under the water. So we thought, this is awesome. We can do this every day we're here. So we went all in. So the next morning, we get up like, dark 30. We get right down to the beach. There was this little lagoon. And we got out there, we donned our snorkeling gear, and we began to swim around, paddle around in the lagoon. We were so mesmerized by everything that we saw, all the fish, all the plant life, and we'd never seen anything like this before. What we didn't know is that as we were swimming around, not looking up, because we had snorkel gear on, we got caught in a riptide. And we didn't know that you can't swim against a riptide. Nobody ever told us that. That wasn't in our, college curriculum. And so at one point, I decided to take my head out of the water, and we had drifted way out to sea. So I don't know what the distance was, but the hotel was like a postage stamp in the distance. And I knew we were in big trouble. And so I screamed. Gail lifted up her head. She screamed. We looked at each other, and we said, what are we going to do? And I said, I don't know. I think we just need to swim as hard as we can to get in. And so we did, and we finally were able to get our feet on the bottom of the ocean when it got shallow enough, and then we walked up on the beach and fell down. We were exhausted. And we didn't go snorkeling again for 20 years. Such a miserable experience. But that's become a giant metaphor for me in terms of how most people go through life. They drift. They don't set out intentionally to get caught in a riptide. It just happens. What's the riptide in your life? Because here's reality. Nobody ever drifted to a destination they would have chosen. You don't end up there on purpose. You just drift there. And that's why people wake up suddenly and they realize they're not in great health. Or they're not as connected with their family as they had hoped or want to be. Or they don't have the relationship with their kids, or they're not making the impact in their communities that they would like to make. So we've got to be honest and admit our situation is not temporary, lest we drift to a destination we would not have chosen. So that's step one. Okay, step two is to recognize not all work is of equal value. I don't know what kind of to-do list you woke up this morning. We did a survey of our clients several years ago when I was writing my book, Free to Focus, and we said for those of you who use a task manager, on average, how many tasks are on your to-do list? And on average, they said 15. That's a lot. But here's the problem. Not all of these are created equal. Some tasks move you towards your goals. Some tasks make a contribution to important projects. Some tasks, like running errands, they have to be done. Maybe not by you, but they've got to be done. But not everything has the same value. So I want to give you a model, something we call the Freedom Compass, and I want to just walk through this. Some tasks you have passion for. You love doing them. It may be why you got into business. Because you thought, wow, what if I could stop working for the man, do my own thing, and do more of this thing that I love? And you know what I'm talking about. When you have passion around a task, and you're working at it, and you're caught up in the flow of it, and you look at your watch and you go, oh my gosh, it's noon already. Why? Because you have passion around that task. You were enjoying that task. And if you could do more of that, your life would be complete. But that's not enough to succeed, is to just have passion. You also need proficiency. You got to be good at what you do. right? To just have passion, but not to be good at what you do is probably a nice hobby, probably not a career. So how do those things come together? So this is the model I want to give you, the Freedom Compass. And it is a compass, but imagine there's two axes here. One is passion. So you're either passionate about the thing that's on your to-do list, or you're not passionate. Then there's a second axis, which is proficiency. You're either good at that task, or you're not so good at that task. And that creates 4 zones. And it is a compass, because there is a true north. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is zone number 1, which we call the desire zone. This is where your passion and your proficiency come together. Something you love doing, but you're also really good at it. And when you do it, you know you're good at it, and you feel good about it, and people compliment you. They encourage you. You get a lot of positive feedback. And if you could just live in that zone, wouldn't it be amazing? Now again, suspend disbelief, because it's possible. I spend about 95% of my time in the desire zone. Didn't happen overnight. This is not a one and done thing. Occasionally I'll slip out of this zone. But what if you could spend more time in the desire zone? Because here's the thing about the desire zone. This is where you make the biggest contribution to your business. If you could do more of this, your business would scale faster. You would have a bigger impact for your clients, for the people that you're called to serve, if you could spend more time in this desire zone. Because I happen to believe this is how God wired you. It's a clue to His will for your life. But there are other zones. Another zone I call the disinterest zone. This is where you have proficiency, but you've either lost the passion or never had it. Give an example. I didn't have any financial training in college, but when I became the CEO of Thomas Nelson Publishers, we were a public company, and I was the COO for a number of years before I became the CEO, and I realized that if I was going to run a public company, I had to get really, really good at finance. I had to be able to sit with financial analysts. I had to be able to visit our investors and be able to hold my own. So I went to school on it. My CFO helped educate me, and I got really good at it. And I would stand up in front of a room of investment bankers, this many people, and I'd feel totally fine. I could answer most of the questions. If it got a little gnarly, I'd call my CFO. But I didn't have any passion around it. And it got to the place where it bored me. And so when I started this company, Full Focus, and many of you have been there. How many of you started a company from scratch before? Okay, a lot of you. Looks like about half of you. I was the chief cook and bottle washer, like you were. You know what I'm talking about. I'm logging all the transactions in QuickBooks. I'm printing the reports. I'm doing all the things related to finance. Was I excited about that? No. It had to be done, but I didn't have any passion around it. That was in my disinterest zone. Here's the other funny thing about the disinterest zone. Entrepreneurs, especially if you're a little ADHD, and we all are, let's be honest, I could get really excited about something for like a week, and then I was over it. And then it was in my disinterest zone. So I love spinning things up, maintaining them, not so much. But the problem is when it's in your disinterest zone and you don't have passion, how do you show up for that thing? Not very great. You know it, your team knows it, it's just lifeless. Okay, third zone, the distraction zone. This is where you're passionate, but you're not good at it. Or at least not good enough that people will pay you for it. And that's part of the definition of proficiency. Now, we're here in Nashville, Tennessee, where if you go out to eat, chances are the server is somebody that came to Nashville to make it big in the music industry. Am I right? And they're passionate about it. They wouldn't have moved if they weren't passionate about it. But the reason they're a server is because they're not good enough, at least yet, that somebody will actually pay them. So they're missing the proficiency piece. For me as an entrepreneur, here's how that looked. My business began as a blog. So I started blogging in 2004, and I developed an audience for that. But writing can sometimes be hard work. So, and some of you will get this and some of you won't, but I was on WordPress, and one of the ways I distracted myself is I love to try to find a new blog header, or design a new logo, or install a new plugin. And it was a great distraction. And that's the problem with the distraction zone. It's a place that we go to escape. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was going there to escape. So much so that when I finally hired a web developer, because I knew just enough to be dangerous, he said, I'll become your web developer on one condition. You never touch the back end of WordPress again in your life. Because I had brought the entire site down twice, and he had to fix it. So he said, I only want one person to blame, and that's me. And by that, he meant himself. So I said, okay. So what is it for you? What's the distraction zone? Where you go, it's low leverage work, where you've got passion around it, but you're not that great at it. And it doesn't create the kind of leverage in your business to scale your business to get the growth you want. Here's the worst zone of all, zone 4, the drudgery zone. This is where you have no passion and no proficiency. You hate this. You avoid it. For me, it's things like managing my email inbox. Can I get an amen? It's also it's funny to see your hand raised up, Courtney, because you are so good at this. Feels like you were instantly responsive to me. But managing my calendar. I promise you, if you leave me alone with my calendar, I will screw it up. And Jim, who's my executive assistant, who happens to be here this morning, he's great at it. But we have a little deal where I don't touch the calendar, much like the back end of WordPress, and everything runs great. Occasionally, I do. And I screw it up, and it reminds me why I don't touch it. I don't like booking travel. I'm totally lost on all those travel sites. I will not find the best deal. I won't find the best flights. Those things are in my drudgery zone. I don't have any passion, and I don't have any proficiency. But what is it for you? By the way, it's not the same for everybody. The things that are generally in my drudgery zone are in Jim's desire zone. That's why we make such great partners in business. But what is it? What if you could do less of all the things that are outside of your desire zone and more of the desire zone? What would happen to your business? What would it make possible for your personal life? And this is one of the keys to getting the double win. So action item here. Do the task filter exercise. And you're thinking, what's that? Well, I'm going to tell you. Okay, so I've got a little tool. I'm going to give you a download link here in a minute. This will be a great personal growth opportunity for you, is to map this. So here's what you do. You basically look at your calendar over the last month or so, and you write down every task that you did. You can look at your task list, you can look at your calendar, but every kind of thing that you did. And you might end up with things like I've got on mine, like process email inbox, manage the calendar, record podcast episodes, and so on. Just list them all. By the way, this is also not a one and done thing. Jim and I just recently did this again because your situation is going to change. Then I want you to go to the second column and ask yourself the question, honestly, do I have any passion around this? Do I enjoy this? And sometimes I think that we grow up, maybe depending on how you were raised, that we ought to just suck it up and do the things that we don't like. That's why they call it work. You know, I've said that to people, I've said it to myself, but there's real value in finding out what you're passionate about. So which of all these tasks that you do you feel passion around? And then do the same thing on the next column, proficiency. Let's be honest, am I proficient at that thing that is on my calendar or on my task list. And then go ahead and give it the zone name. Like if you've got a line with no checkboxes, that's the drudgery zone. If you've got a line where it's proficiency but no passion, that's disinterest. If you've got one with 2 checkboxes, and there won't be a lot of these, that's your desire zone. That's what you need to do more of. And so just go through that column and give it a name based on where it falls. That's it. That's the first part of the exercise. And you can download that here. If you want to take a picture of this with your phone, get that QR code. I'll leave it up there for a second. Then you can download that for free and fill it out. So the website's also up there as well, fullfocus.co. That's not a typo, it's .co/Pinnacle. Has everybody got that? Okay. Step 3, pruning. Reduce your desire zone, your non-desire zone activities. Reduce your non-desire zone activities. This has got to be intentional. It's got to be deliberate. It's got to be incremental, but over time, you really can do it. And again, my whole premise is that when you do this, you will be doing the things that actually enable you to achieve more by doing less because you're doing the important things. Remember, not all tasks are of equal value. You want to be focused on the ones where you can really add value. That'll cause your business to scale and your personal freedom to scale. So I want to just give you 3 quick strategies for reducing your non-desire zone activities. And I go into this in real depth in my book, Free to Focus. There's a chapter for each one of these, but I'm going to give you a high-level flyby. Okay, the first one, eliminate. I don't know about you, but it's hard for me to say no. I'm a recovering people pleaser. Jim and Gail, would you attest to that? Yes. And I suffer from FOMO, photo, FOCO, and that's not a Latin conjugation. Those are 3 acronyms. I have a fear of missing out. How many of you feel this? This is the photo part, a fear of disappointing others. I hate that. I resigned from a nonprofit board last week, and it took me weeks before I was willing to let it go because I knew that it was going to disappoint some people. And I had tremendous mixed emotions the day I submitted my resignation letter. Next day, elated, thrilled. And then the last one, fear of conflict with others. You know, I'm afraid that if I say no, it's going to create some conflict, and I want to avoid that, so I just keep doing those things that have lost their value for me and probably aren't adding that much value to anybody else. But you got to be ruthless in your elimination. Listen to what Warren Buffett said. I love this quote. The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Wow. That's an aspiration for you. Because if you say yes to everything, it's like a plant that never gets pruned. We've got these like 7-foot hydrangeas in the back of our house if the freeze didn't kill them all. But normally, those things have to be pruned down to about 24 inches if we're going to see the fruit of them in the middle of the summer. Every living thing to be healthy has to be pruned. And there's probably meetings, there are probably tasks, there are probably things that you're doing right now that at some point in the past were valuable. But now, if you're honest, not so much. And they need to be eliminated. Some things can be automated. They need to be done, but they may not need to be done by a human, especially you. And I don't know if you've been keeping up with all that's happening in artificial intelligence right now. Wow. I've got an email program that Jim and I started using because we can collaborate, leave each other comments about messages in it. It's called Missive, Missive. And they just released a version this week that has ChatGPT, AI, built into it. So I can click a button and I can say, draft a response to this email. Bam! Write a blog post. Give me an outline for a blog post. Bam! It's so fast. But there's automation that is amazing. One of the best ways to automate is to try to template everything that you do. If you find yourself doing something more than once, create a template. We have a whole bunch of email templates. I realized when I was back at Thomas Nelson Publishers that I only got about 40 different kinds of requests. I started cataloging them. You know, people asked me to serve on a nonprofit board. People asked me to review their book proposal. People asked me to come speak somewhere, whatever it was. And so the first time I would respond, sometimes I would respond and I'd give them a generous, gracious response. Other times I might be irritated, I might give them something short. So I thought, I'm gonna write something for each of these responses. I'm gonna save it as an email signature, and now you've got, snippets that you can do, but I'm gonna write it in a way that I would be proud of if I read it a couple years from now. And then it was as simple as I get that request, grab the template, warm it up a little bit, put a personalized first sentence, send it on its way. It made speeding through my inbox very quick. So automation. And then delegation. This is a hard one for a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs. And my guess is, don't ask me how I know this, that there are sentences that are in your head. And the sentences, you can maybe complete these when I started. If I want it done right, I have to do it myself. Right. Or how about this one? It takes longer to explain how to do it than just do it, so I might as well do it myself. Right. Or I can't afford an executive assistant or somebody else right now. I'm going to have to do it myself. As long as the answer to those three questions is myself, you've hit the lid on your growth. Because here's reality, you only have so many hours a week. And it's really hard if you don't learn to delegate. 3 mistakes that I find leaders make when it comes to delegation. First of all, they just hesitate for the reasons I just explained. They hesitate, they're reluctant to make a delegation because they think that no one can do it as well as they can do it. Can I just be honest? That's just arrogance. That's all it is. You may be good, but there might be people that can do it better than you can do it. And I've got a company full of those kinds of employees. I remember when I used to stand up and do our coaching workshops, and my daughter proposed to me that we needed some more coaches because the program was growing. And I literally had that thought, nobody can do it as well as I can do it. And then I went to the first session where one of our coaches taught it. And this was not false humility. I literally leaned to the next person next to me and I said, John's actually better at this than I am. And if you recruit the right talent, that's what your experience will be as well. So sometimes we hesitate to delegate because we don't see the potential in the people to whom we delegate. And the truth is, if you're in the people development business, if you want to see people grow and become better than they are, you've got to give them opportunities. But here's another mistake that business leaders make, is they abdicate. Sometimes I call this the dump and run. It's like, I'm too busy to explain what I need, just do this thing. And then they get the thing back, and they're all disappointed because it didn't meet up to their expectations. And here's why. You expected the person to whom you delegated to read your mind. Gail and I have been married for 44 years. I cannot read her mind. She cannot read my mind. I have to be explicit. She has to be explicit. And it goes much better when we share our expectations with each other. Same thing true for the team that you have. And when you get that thing back that doesn't meet up to your expectations, the question is not, why can't I hire better people? Or what do I need to do to get rid of this person? The question is, what is it about your leadership that led to that result? Or in this case, the lack of leadership. Personal responsibility, take ownership. Here's the other mistake. This is like my least favorite one. It's not that they hesitate. It's not that they abdicate, but they suffocate. They become a micromanager. How many of you love being micromanaged? Hate it. The reason I'm in Nashville, the reason I moved to Nashville was because I went to work back in Waco, Texas, a small publishing company I was working for. I got a great job, great promotion, and I was suddenly working for a guy that was a micromanager. I hated it. I hated it so much that I lasted in that job less than 6 months, and that's what brought me to Thomas Nelson and Nashville, was to get out from under that oppressive micromanagement. But we've got to learn to delegate. That would be an awesome personal development project for you this year if you haven't done it, is to get better at delegation. And you got to be willing to be bad at it before you're going to get good at it. But I'll tell you who can help you is the person to whom you're delegating. To have a sit down when you make the delegation and say, let me just tell you what I expect. Don't get focused on the process. Stay focused on the outcome. Here's what I want to see. We did an event in this very room probably 7 years ago. And I told Susie, who was our director of operations at the time, I said, let me tell you what I envision. And I described what I saw on the day of the event. I didn't care how she made it happen. I didn't care who she hired. I didn't care about how much she spent, and I gave her that as a parameter. I checked in with her from time to time, but I walked into the room and I thought, this is exactly what I envisioned. In fact, it's better than what I envisioned. Because I took a little bit of time, it didn't take much, to be clear about what I expected. Okay, so let's go back. Here's an action item. Let's go back to that task filter. Eliminate, automate, or delegate all of your drudgery zone activities. So what you're going to do is go back through the tasks and decide the strategy you're going to use to get the non-desire zone activities off your plate. Maybe it could just be eliminated. Maybe it needs to be automated. Maybe it needs to be delegated. Maybe there's a few items that remain on your plate. And if it's more than about 3 to 5 things in your desire zone, you need to take another look at it because it really doesn't need to be more than that. Okay, step 4. Redesign your daily task list. Guys, we are playing a game we can't win. If you have 15 items, like our clients had, as I explained earlier, on their to-do list, that's not a game that you're going to win, or at least win very often. And let me tell you what's really bad for your leadership. You wake up in the morning, you look at that task list, and you immediately feel overwhelmed, right? It's like there's not a snowball's chance, and you know what, that I'm going to accomplish these 15 things. You know, I can't drink enough coffee. I can't be caffeinated enough to make this happen. And so let's say you get 7 done. You know, you get roughly half done. You don't celebrate. You go to bed defeated. And so if you wake up overwhelmed, if you go to bed defeated, how do you show up at work? Energetic, let's go get them? No. You're depleted. And I'm going to tell you, there is nothing that your team senses more or pays attention to more than your energy. Andy Stanley says that your energy is the most important leadership gift that you bring to your team. And I think that's exactly right. But you can't do it with 15 items on your to-do list. David Allen says you can do anything you want, you just can't do everything you want. Prioritization, choosing. So I want to give you a little concept. We have a product called the Full Focus Planner. Some of you may be users of it, but it doesn't matter if you use the planner. I mean, I'd love for you to use it, don't get me wrong. But there's another thing. You can just do this on a yellow pad, legal pad. But the first thing I like to do in the morning, this is a page from the Full Focus Planner, I like to, first of all, put down my appointments because that represents non-discretionary time. If I've committed to something, then I'm committed to that thing. And that gives me a sense of what can be accomplished that day. Then I list my big 3 for the day. Now, you know the law, 20% of the effort drives 80% of the results. So if you have on average 15 items on your task list, 20% magically is 3. And again, remember, not all tasks are of equal value. So if you could focus on the 3 top tasks, and here's the key, they've got to be important. And in other words, they've got to move you in the direction of one of your goals, or they got to be related to an important project. And they can be personal or they can be professional, but no more than 3. It sounds impossible, but if you do 3 a day, and you do that 5 days a week, and you do that, even allowing for vacation over the course of a year, you're going to end up with a lot of important stuff accomplished, right? And then we have a place, if you've got a morning ritual or a workday startup ritual, one of the things that we teach, but a place for other tasks. Those are the things, if you get to them, great, but here's the beauty. If you get the 3 done, you declare victory. You look in the mirror and you feel proud. You go to bed at night, put your head on the pillow and go, this was a good day. I got it done. Sometimes, occasionally, not every day, sometimes I'll get those done by noon. And then the rest of the day is just bonus time. So here's the action item for this one. Take the 30-day Big 3 challenge, because some of you, I can see it on your faces, you're skeptical. You're thinking, there's no way I could do just 3 things a day. So I'm going to challenge you, try it as an experiment for 30 days. If it doesn't work, go back to your old system. But if it does work, what would it make possible? And if you're tired of feeling overwhelmed, if you're tired of going to bed defeated, this is the way to get there. Our clients say to us, as simple as this idea is, that it's the most transformative concept that we've taught them because it's made a vast difference in their daily work. Okay, step 5. Recruit a coach to accelerate your progress. I am a strong believer in coaching. In fact, the way that I dug out from that hole that I was in with Gail after we'd had that banner 18 months was I said, I don't know how to do this. And I hired an executive coach. And my coach said to me, he said, well, one of the first things I noticed about your life, as we had talked for about an hour or so, is he said, you don't have any boundaries. He said, you're working evenings, weekends, vacations. He said, am I right or wrong? And I said, guilty as charged. And he said, would you be willing to put a boundary on your workday? And I said, well, what do you mean? Pick a time you're going to quit, and then you're done. Because my habit was, in the middle of the afternoon, I wouldn't finish my work, and I would say to myself, well, that's not a big deal, because I'll go home, have dinner with the family, crack open the laptop, and continue working till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. When I was on the weekends, I'd say, no problem, I'll just work Saturday morning like every other executive at my company was doing. And vacations, I'd say, no problem, I'll just get up a couple hours before the family does, crank through some email, make a few phone calls, and then I'll be with the family. And I can remember having these conversations with Gail. Honey, I'm almost done. And then it would, drift into the middle of the day before I'd be finished. So he said, I want you to put hard boundaries around your work. And I said, okay, I'm willing to commit to quitting at 6 p.m. I'm willing to not work on the weekends, and I'm willing to really be unplugged. This felt like a stretch on my vacations. And he said, great. He said that I'm sure you won't mind if I call Gail periodically to see how you're doing. Really? And he did that. That created some enormous accountability and accelerated the change. So a coach can be great. Andy Stanley says it like this: you may be good, you may be even better than everyone else, but without a coach, you will never be as good as you could be. This is why this is such a popular thing right now, coaching. So we do have a coaching program, and I'll give you a little information on that in a minute. But regardless, we're one of many. There's a lot of business coaching programs out there, but I want to give you 3 questions that you need to ask before you hire a coach. Okay, number 1, I'm going to make this quick. What results are they getting for their clients? Because I want to tell you the dirty little secret of business coaching. Anybody can be a business coach. All you have to do is get business cards printed, maybe get a 1-page website set up. Bam, you're in business. And a lot of those people don't have any experience. They're not delivering results. They're brand new, and you want to know what the results have been. Because if that coach is not getting results with his clients, he or she is not going to be able to help you. Second question, what's the format of the coaching? There's a lot of popular formats. I used to think that one-on-one coaching was the gold standard. You know, where you meet with an executive coach every couple of weeks. And by the way, part of the value of having that executive coach is they don't have, like we would say in the South, a dog in the hunt. You know, it's not like your boss who wants certain results, or your board of directors, or even your employees, but a coach is in it for you. But what's the format they use? Some other people have a group format where it's group coaching. I think the best, and this is true for our coaching program, I think the best format is where you have both. Where there's group coaching so that you get the peer support, the peer encouragement, and you also get the one-on-one attention for your specific situation. So ask about the format. What's the format? Third, experience. What experience does that coach have? Have they ever run a business? Do they know what it's like to meet a payroll? Do they know what it's like to not meet a payroll? All of our business coaches are actively running businesses because we want that level of expertise. But ask the question. Again, you can get certified as a coach by attending a weekend seminar and have no business experience. You don't want that. So all I want to suggest is this action item is to explore hiring a coach. That's it. Just explore it. Look at it. What would a coach make possible for your business? Could you go further, faster with a coach? Now, in case you're interested in our program, we do this with a discovery call, but you can schedule a business growth coaching call. You can take a picture of that. You can do it at businessaccelerator.com. Our coaching program is called Business Accelerator/schedule, or take a picture of that QR code and book a call. It's not a sales call. We're going to ask you a ton of questions. You may not be a fit. We may not be a fit. But if we are, we'll invite you to apply for the program. And regardless, you will come away from that call having identified where you need to give your focus and attention over the next 12 months. Just a 45-minute call. It's free. And by the way, if you sign up and show up at the call, we'll give you access to our course, No Fail Meetings. Amazing course, if I don't say so myself. And if you hate meetings as much as most business owners I know, and if you suspect that the number of meetings may be impinging upon your ability to get the double win, this course is amazing. And again, it's free. All you got to do is sign up for a business growth coaching call. Okay, just a quick recap, and then I'm going to take questions here in just a second. First of all, number one, step one, if you want the double win at work and succeed at life, resist the illusion that your workload is temporary. Number two, recognize that not all work is of equal value. It may be all on your task list, but not all those things move you towards your goals. Not all are related to important projects. Number three, reduce your non-desire zone activities. Get out of the drudgery zone. That's where I'd start. If you could just get rid of the drudgery zone, that would be amazing, right? Number four, redesign your day and take the 30-day challenge. Big three for 30 days. And then you can decide to go back to whatever you were doing if it didn't work for you. And then number five, consider recruiting a coach to accelerate your progress. Probably about 4 years ago, Gail and I decided to take an annual sabbatical every summer. We go away for 30 days. When I first started this business, I thought it'd be really good for the business and for us if we just get out of the business for 30 days, totally unplugged. So we decided to go to Jackson, Wyoming. And we had an amazing time. We fished, we hiked, we took a lot of naps. We got some great sleep. But the last full day before we were to fly home, Gail said to me, she said, tomorrow morning, I'd love to get up and see the sunrise. And we'd been sleeping in, so I said, well, what kind of time does that need to happen? And she said, I think if we get up at 4 a.m., we'll be okay. And I was like, really? Okay. So I agreed to do it. Happy wife, Happy life, exactly. So the alarm goes off at 4 a.m. I was so tempted to hit the snooze button, but I didn't. I got up. We began to drive out of the city, and I snapped that picture on my iPhone that morning. So we went from there. We went to Jenny Lake. If you've been in Jackson, Wyoming, you know what I'm talking about. We went to Jenny Lake. We took a ferry over to the West Bank, and then we went for a hike up this mountain up to Inspiration Point. Now, from Inspiration Point, you can see the entire Jackson Hole Valley. It is stunning, and especially that time of the morning, there weren't many people there. And so we sat there, trying to catch our breath, and Gail reached over and grabbed my hand. And again, with tears, she just said, "Thank you for making this sabbatical possible. But more than that, thank you for loving me and being there for the girls." What a contrast from the conversation we'd had in the den back in 2001. Vast difference. And I felt overwhelming gratitude. What about for you? What if you could experience a transformation where whatever you're in right now, whatever your state of life is, where you're at with your business and your personal life, what if all that could be transformed? Where you could really envision a bigger, better future, not just for your business, but for your personal life, for your health, for your family. I hope you won't hit the snooze button. It's tempting to go back to sleepwalking and just kind of going through life. I hope you don't do that. I hope you'll embrace this one life you've been given and decide that you're going to be an example for your family, for the generations to come, for your company, by living, not just talking about, but living the double win. Okay, and with that, I want to take questions, and I want to be mindful of our time. Sam, would you set that clock to whatever time we've got left so I don't run over? I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We've got 3 microphones set up, so go to any of the 3 microphones and you can ask Michael questions.
Let me also just preface this and say you may be thinking, well, I'm probably the only person that has this question. If you've got the question, I promise you there are other people in the room that have the question. So be brave, not just for your benefit, but for theirs. One of the things that's one of my superpowers is I can stand in silence like this when it gets really awkward and I don't even flinch. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you for your time. What would be one suggestion you'd give a new business owner and one suggestion you'd give to somebody that's been in business for 10 to 15 years?
That's a great question, actually. It's 2 questions, but it's a great question. The first one I would say is start, if you have a new business, make sure that you're clear about the destination. Where are you taking this enterprise? And literally take the time to craft a vision. I call it a vision script. I wrote an entire book on that called The Vision Driven Leader, but it's all about creating a vision script for your business. The reason I turned around that division at Thomas Nelson, that's the first thing I did. I didn't call it that then, but I went off on a personal retreat and I wrote down as a series of bullets what I wanted to see over the course of the next 3 years. That's what I shared with the team, and that's what we worked toward, and that's what we accomplished. So start with a vision. Don't just get busy and start doing stuff, because most businesses fail. Literally, only 4% of businesses will last 10 years. 96% of all businesses that start will be out of business in 10 years. For the person that has the 15, been in business for 15 years, I would say get a vision. You know, vision drives everything. And it's worth revisiting and updating every year. And if you do have a vision script, you can't just let it live inside your head. You are the voice of the vision. If you don't give voice to the vision, And if you don't keep talking about it, then people aren't going to get the vision. You know, vision leaks. People forget. And so I think that a lot of companies, some companies run out of cash. Some companies run out of innovation. A lot of companies run out of vision. Don't be that company. Good question. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for the great presentation.
You're welcome.
I carefully listen and I agree, absorb all what you said, except one point, what kind of scared me when you mentioned automation, AI, right?
Yeah.
Is that will take who you are? Are you losing yourself, giving up to something that we don't know? Where we'll go, how far we'll take over our brain and who we are?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different responses that you could have to artificial intelligence. And I remember having this conversation, Gail and my girls and I, we all have this thread inside of messages where we communicate. And so one of my daughters got onto AI, and some of my daughters said, man, this is terrifying. And some of my daughters said, this is amazing. But I can tell you, because I've studied some in the history of technology, that with every technological revolution, there were people that thought it was the end of the world. Now, I come from the world of book publishing. And I can tell you that when Gutenberg invented the printing press, all the monasteries across Europe who had been charged with transcribing books by hand from one generation to the next panicked. They said, well, it's the end of the world. And then later, actually, Thomas Nelson and his sons developed the rotary press, which meant that they could print books 20 times as fast as a sheet-fed press like Gutenberg had developed. And everybody said, well, that's the end of quality books. And with every technological invention, it's been the same situation. You have the naysayers and the people that are willing to embrace it. I think, personally, I think we should embrace it. Because guess what? It's coming whether we like it or not. It's happening. So we can either steer this and get on board and use it for good, or we can just passively wait in the wings and I think miss the opportunity. It's going to create disruption for sure. But inside of that disruption is going to be enormous opportunity. And so I think that you and I as leaders get to choose whether we're going to embrace it or whether we're going to be afraid of it. And I think I have a personal belief that as humans, technology will never replace us. It will leverage the things that are repetitive, the things that can be automated, but I don't think it's going to ever get to the place where it's going to replace us. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Terminator's in our future, but I don't think so. I think it's an amazing thing, and we've already seen value in our company with it.
Thank you for sharing today.
You're welcome.
Do you have an example of something you wish you would have delegated sooner, and maybe an example of something that you delegated and you had to pull back or thought maybe that wasn't a good idea in hindsight?
I wished I would have delegated everything sooner. Because I naively went from Thomas Nelson Publishers, where I literally had 2 full-time assistants, to now all of a sudden I'm a solopreneur and I'm doing everything myself. I literally could not find the FedEx box. I didn't know, how does this work with FedEx? How do you get something to somebody overnight? I literally didn't know that kind of stuff. How do you book travel? So I tried to do it all myself for several months. And then I thought, this is stupid, because when I'm working on this stuff that's not bringing in revenue, which I'm pretty sure as a new business is like job number 1, I thought, what if I could give away this stuff and it would free me up to go get more clients or to engage in those revenue-producing opportunities? And so I reluctantly hired a part-time executive assistant. And there's lots of services out there right now. I used a company called Belay Solutions, Belay. Amazing. We still use their assistants to this day. And I said, I just want 10 hours a week. I couldn't believe it. 10 hours a week, what I was able to get done and what I was able to get off my plate and the energy that I felt as a result of that, amazing. So then after 2 weeks, I said, let's do this 20 hours a week. And then we incrementally worked up over the course of a year to where it was a full-time thing. So I think, I wished I had delegated that earlier and just admitted at the beginning, look, the most important thing I can do is get focused on the revenue-producing stuff. And you don't have to do it full-time. You can grow into it. What was your second question about?
What's something you delegated that you had to pull back or was not a good idea?
Okay, this, honestly, nothing. So now, Jim's sitting here, right? Jim's my executive assistant. But Jim, keep me honest here. I don't think I've ever pulled back anything I've delegated to you, have I?
Just keep giving.
I'm the gift that keeps giving. So yeah, I mean, here's the thing I think sometimes we underestimate, and Jim is absolutely, and I do say this all the time, even when he's not around, he's the best executive assistant I've ever had. Courtney, you've experienced on your end. I mean, literally, almost before I think it, he's done it. This morning, one of your associates, Lee Marie, asked me something to forward some things to her, and Jim was caught up in a conversation with Gail, and I said, Jim, would you make sure that you get that to Lee Marie? And he said, already taken care of. But I literally have never delegated something to him I had to pull back because we underestimate how people can be. I mean, if you hire well, you got to do that. But if you hire well, I think we underestimate what people can do. And you never know until you try it. And what you might find is that they do it way better than you do it. And that's been my experience. Now, we have a tool inside of our business coaching program called the Vision Caster, which is a one-page tool that helps get out of our head onto paper what our expectations are and any parameters around the delegation so that it's much more likely that what they deliver is what I expect. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much. Is this on? Can you hear me okay?
I can.
All right. Thank you, first of all. My name is Sarah Pappas. I'm a small business owner, and I have used your books and your coaching with tremendous success. So thank you so much for that. My question for you is, how do I find a gym? I'm at that point. Our business is 10 years old, and I've used Free to Focus. I've gone from delegating, automating, and I'm at that point right now where I need an executive assistant or I need that right-hand man, and I'm almost paralyzed by fear. I'm not sure where to find this person.
Yeah.
Can I afford this person? I want to be able to pay them lots and lots of money to do all these things. And so, like, how did you find yours, and what advice would you give?
Well, here's the advice I'd suggest. First of all, you might try to get some of Jim's DNA, but we've had clients try that. But I would say that first of all, I wrote a book on this called Your World-Class Assistant, and you can go to my website at fullfocus.co and find that book. And we have an entire course. What's the name of the course, Jim?
It's Full Focus Executive Assistant.
Full Focus Executive Assistant. And Jim is one of the teachers in that. But we lay out the whole course. The cool thing is there's a portion of it that's for the leader, and there's a portion of it that's for the executive assistant, so that you both understand what you're working towards. And it's basically our best thinking on this. And I'm excited for you. I think hiring the right executive assistant can make all the difference. But that book will tell you how to hire one. That's the first thing that we talk about. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for such great information. One question I have is, as a small business owner, when you start to do this and try to offload things and extract yourself up and out of that so you can grow your business, how did you transition your team or those close to you as you tried to step back? Because some do not do well with that.
Yeah.
They want you.
So that's exactly right. And some of you will experience this with clients. You've built a business where it's very relational, and the client insists on you doing the work. So I think when it comes to employees, you can't just assume, again, that people can read your mind. In the absence of your explanation, you know what people do? They make stuff up. And usually what they make up is nowhere close to reality, and it's not usually favorable. But that's on you as a leader. That's on me as a leader. So I've got to be careful to give the reasons, to tell my team why I'm going to do this. Like the conversation might go like this. Like, hey, I want you all to understand that I'm going to be stepping back some because I'm committed to the long-term viability of this business. And if the business is too dependent upon me and something happens to me, then everybody's job is in jeopardy. None of us want that, right? So I'm going to be stepping back to get more focused on the things that I do well so that the business is more sustainable, more stable, and will continue to grow. And by the way, that's the essence of scaling. You've got to be able to accomplish that. In terms of clients, if you've got that problem with clients, take somebody else with you to those client meetings, the very first meeting, and build that other person up and say, look, I'm here on this first meeting, but your go-to person from this point forward is going to be Betty. And let me tell you, you don't want me to be that person. You want Betty to be that person because of all these amazing things that Betty does. And now all of a sudden they're connected with Betty, and this gives you the ability to scale your business and not make it so dependent upon you. I had to be out of my business this last year for 3 months because of a medical issue, a surgery that I had. Out of the business for 3 months. The business did not miss a beat. Kept growing. They kept sending me checks. It was awesome. That's what you want. Very good question. Anybody else? We've got time for a few more. Yes, sir.
Mike, I was just going to ask on your Freedom Compass, translating that, because, it was big, noticeable in your business. You built the Freedom Compass and worked in your desire zone to have more time at home. Did any of that translate to you into your personal life? Like, I know obviously in the distraction zone, like I love golf. I know you're a golfer too, so it's like.
Definitely no proficiency on my part.
But, is there any of that translates to in the home to give you more freedom at home and be there, because you're not replaceable at home as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's worth doing one of those task filters on your personal life. I was just talking about the business application, but we encourage our clients, do it on your personal life too. Like I'll give you an example with Gail. So for years, I kept suggesting to Gail, we need to get a housekeeper that would come in like just once a week. Well, inside of her head, she has this story that if I'm competent, and we're pretty old school, she wasn't working outside of the home. She said, if I'm competent, I ought to be able to clean the house. I ought to be able to do all that stuff. And I finally said to her, I said, but is this the best and highest use of you? And one of the things that happened was our niece, who was a single mom, decided to start cleaning houses and needed some work. And I said to Gail, you're depriving somebody like Jessica of the opportunity to express her gifts and to make a living because you're insisting on doing something you've admittedly said to me you don't like and you're not very good at. It's in your drudgery zone. Well, that connected her with a higher purpose. So she hired Jessica. Made a huge difference. Right now, Gail has a personal assistant. We have a home manager because they handle all the drudgery stuff. The best and highest use of Gail is to be a partner with me, to love on our daughters and sons-in-law and grandkids like she's amazing, encourage her, and that's the stuff that she loves. So yes, long answer to a short question. We got time for one more?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Real quick, maybe just a quick witness of our company turns 33 years old next week. And so for 25 years, you described exactly, my life. And I had to do some real soul search. I can't imagine having 5 daughters. I have 3, and you're not on medication or?
Well, not publicly that I'm going to get to.
Another story. But exactly what you said. Learning that no is not a sinful word was really hard. We all as business owners, sometimes hard to say no.
It is.
And then realizing that I'm now the CEO. That exactly right. That there are support and coaching has really turn our company around. And,
Wow.
And all of us, some of us, I was an elder and I was just running completely crazy, trying to do everything. And so coaching really is a wonderful investment in your company.
Wow, thank you. That was not a plant, but thank you very much. Courtney, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you all very much. Enjoyed being with you.